When the ethereal spirit projects into dense matter, a fracturing occurs. Awareness splits from superconscious into conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. The ego is a product of this separation. The problem arises when the ego forgets its identity beyond form. The ego is a fear-based thought system. Its mechanisms are based on the avoidance of pain and the experience of pleasure. It's a learned system based on trial and error. Therefore, it keeps our awareness trapped by the past. Its true purpose is to be a tool of awareness. Our goal is to rebuild our consciousness to operate as a more integrated whole. For this to happen, we must release our attachment to the ego mind so that it may step aside and find its true place. As long as it is at the forefront, other layers of awareness and function remain in the background. We want to regain conscious access to the immense power which is the connected self. In Eastern thought and Hinduism, our true self is beyond our ego mentation. It's the awareness that sets at our center. As a part of this program, we're learning that our ego mind is not our true self. It's like the operating system of awareness, which is what our true self is. So the first step of this is for the ego mind to understand that it alone is powerless over the immensity that is existence. It must, in order to evolve to the next stage of development, accept its limits. And only at this point can our consciousness begin to integrate our higher mind. So we want to begin to see ourselves as the conscious awareness. The ego mind is the operating system, our vessel that we use to interact with the world, but we're learning to be in the world, but not of the world. The ego mind is what is of the world. We want to step back into our awareness self. What we do in this program is, in the second phase, we make a map of the ego mind so that we can begin to understand it and be able to, from our awareness self, observe it as we're interacting in it. Meditation is good as a practice because you're seating yourself in that mental space beyond the ego mentation. But when you're interacting in the world, it's harder because you're in the mechanisms. So you're in the senses, you're hearing, you're interacting. So what we're doing is we're making a map of that so that we can begin to step back from it even while we're interacting with it. The most effective for that specifically that I've found is the centering prayer, because meditation is just centering yourself in the silence, but you're still fighting the ego mind because usually you're trying to stop it because you're trying to find the silence. In the centering prayer meditation, the way it's described by its founder, Thomas Keating, is we go in our prayer closet and we lock the door to the ego mind. So the way he puts it is we're centering on the river. Thoughts are the boats that are floating along the river. So we want to allow the boats to do whatever they're doing, but we want to put our focus on the river itself. And what you're doing there is you're building the awareness self. You're taking a step back, you're observing the silence while still aware of the ego mentation, which is the thoughts. As you do that, you're observing the silence, you are becoming aware of awareness while still becoming unattached to your thoughts. Most of us, before we start meditation, think that we are the ego. So we identify ourselves as the ego that is having the thoughts. We identify the thoughts as ourself. So the first stage is to form the observer. It's to create a part of your own psyche that is the observer of the thoughts. And it's what I equated earlier with awareness. So it's the part of us that is aware of what's going on the inside. So it can also be called the observer. Once we establish that, then we tune in and access those levels of higher awareness in the centering prayer, and this is the catalyst for it that makes it different than just forming the observer. When we go into our prayer closet, we invite in the presence of God by choosing a code word. And the code word is a trigger for divine mind to enter into our meditative space. So by doing that, we are actually opening ourselves to the influence, the working of divine mind within it. Eventually, they kind of blend into one, but initially, you're forming that space in between where we're inviting divine mind in. In later stages, we learn to surrender ourselves to that divine mind. Eventually, we lose our identity in God. But first, we have to understand who we are not so we can understand and find who it is we truly are. And we'll go through phases of spiritual alchemy in this because really we're having to change the way that we think. And sometimes those old thought forms have a grip on us. So we have to understand what they are. We'll be given a method for incorporating the Holy Spirit, the Holy Breath, in order to help us with what's called, the Greek term is metanoia. It's how to change your mind. It's neuroplasticity. It's the idea that we have old neural pathways that are firing. So as we step back into the observer, we observe the firing of those old neural pathways, but then we begin to create new ones at the same time by using those as a trigger. So we watch for those old neural pathways as they start to fire, and then we can start inviting in the Holy Spirit and create new ones in conjunction with the Holy Spirit, because that has to do with your breath. The breath is connected to the subconscious mind. So we're actually uniting our conscious mind with our subconscious mind by leaving the old pathways behind. We're taking our old self and we're allowing it to create a new self, which is in conjunction with the whole self that's already present. There's a lot to this, and spiritual alchemy is a whole science. Basically, we're using the old self to help create the new self in partnership with the Holy Spirit. Our focus turns to tuning into what is already present within us. The focus at first is on surrendering the old self, because it'll want to come up and grab a hold of you and pull your awareness down those old neural pathways. But when you do it in conjunction with the Holy Spirit, we'll move into learning to move into our feeling nature. Being in spirit, being in God, in the presence of God becomes our rock. It's Christ mind, being in the presence of God. We're replacing all the old stuff with something that's new and much better. So it's a step-by-step process. At the end of it, you are just allowing the mind of God to flow through you. And it's a very peaceful way to be.
Yes, it is very apparent. Surrendering, letting in the stillness, navigating, following the flow. The stillness is always there. It's a matter of keying into it. That makes it interesting. And then knowing that you are in the presence of God that you've surrendered to makes it more clear that you are not just on your own, you are not left to your own resources. It's not just the usual ritual of trial and error. So being in the presence of God makes it clear that, look, you are going somewhere. Because the Bible tells us that the new man is created to be like God in the true righteousness and holiness, which simply implies that navigating from the old to the new in the presence of God, within the medium of the presence of God, makes it very feasible and attainable. This promises to be very interesting, engaging, and really involving with the spirit of the Creator himself.